Welcome back to the channel. Today's conversation is one that I'm really excited about. If you're a boy mom, you definitely don't want to miss this. Our guest today is Brooke Lynn Waters. Brooke Lynn is a Christian parenting coach, speaker, and the host of the Raising Boys with Purpose podcast. As a wife and mom of two adult sons, she's passionate about helping moms prepare their teen sons for adulthood by building faith, character, responsibility, emotional intelligence, and independence. Drawing from both personal experience and biblical wisdom, Brooke equips moms with practical strategies to intentionally raise young men who love God, serve others, and step confidently into adulthood. Through her podcast, coaching, and speaking, she encourages moms to see the teen years not as something to survive, but as an opportunity to prepare their sons for the future. Brooke, thank you so much for being here. If you could just jump in and just kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, Corey. Thank you so much for having me today. I've been looking forward to this, so I'm glad I could be here. I think one of my most important things is being a mom. And I love my kids so much. And I recognize that sometimes moms, when they're raising a young man, they were never boys. And so they sometimes are a little uncertain about what is the best way to raise them as they're growing and they're maturing and they have that natural pulling away process. And so instead of sometimes allowing our hurt feelings and our emotions to work their way through, this way we can be intentional about our raising, letting our boys know that we love them, we encourage them, and we want them to grow up to be strong men of God who can be independent and self-supporting and one day hopefully support a family themselves.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. It is awesome. And that's what we all want for sure. So like I said in the intro, I'm really excited about our conversation. And I'd like to kind of get right into it and ask you just the first question that I have. And
Yes.
I think this is something that probably every parent, whether you are a mother or a father, has gone through this. But we have to deal with at times, or we can feel like we're reacting, I should say, from one crisis to another. And my question is, how does a family move from reactive parenting to intentional parenting?
I think for me, the main thing is communication. I think if you and your children discuss what your expectations are in different circumstances, this way everyone knows how things are going to work. And our sons know that if something happens, they know what the consequences are, but they also know maybe what the rewards are. We give feedback. And to be honest, I like feedback from my own kids. Yeah. Because in our house, I enjoy cooking, but sometimes I experiment a little. And so for me, the feedback of my family, who I want them to enjoy my meal, I want them to enjoy what I've prepared, but I don't want them to fake it. So Give me real feedback. Let me know, because if you tell me it's awesome and it's not, I'm going to keep serving it to you and I'm going to expect you to eat it. Yeah. So I think that honesty and that feedback in a respectful manner. Yep. There may be times that, emotions do run high, and we have to recognize that. And it's natural, but maybe even stepping back a little bit. And that's an expectation we share with our children also. We're not always going to agree. We're allowed to disagree, but we need to be respectful in that also. Sure. And I expect that from you. And you deserve to expect that from me. So I think communication is one of the big ones, right there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think without the communication up front, it can, that can lead to where tensions can rise even more, even though some situations may be a little bit challenging. But if we both sides, if the parent, as myself as a parent, and my son who I have, know the expectations from me, it actually reduces the opportunity for something like that to happen, for sure.
100%. I do agree. And I think also you need to recognize that if you have more than one child, they're not the same person.
Yeah.
So you have to know that sometimes your expectations, they may expect differently from you just because
Yep.
of their own personality. So you kind of have to tweak it a little bit for each child. And if you have girls, same thing. It's your whole family is there. It's a family of individuals. You're there as a group, but you
Yeah.
also have to make sure that the individual is taken care of also.
Yep. Now, what would you say some subtle mistakes that well-meaning parents can make unintentionally that can prevent their child from becoming independent? But really curious of your perspective on that.
Well, I think sometimes we don't expect enough of our children. We and sometimes honestly I see it more in moms than I do in dads. Now
Yeah.
dads sometimes it's the opposite. They do it for their daughters. But moms a lot of times for their for their sons, they I mean people used to say you would coddle your children. And I think there's a natural thing. You want to do things for your children, just like you want
Yeah.
people to do things for you. And doing good things and acts of service for others is not a bad thing.
Right.
But when it crosses the line to where they are not learning how to take care of themselves, they're not learning those basic skills that they need to grow up to become adults because you do everything for them, it inhibits their growth and their maturity. And one day they're going to leave. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the way God made them. They're supposed to leave the nest and they're supposed to hopefully one day have a family. And your job is to provide them the skills to do so. And if you don't have the expectation that in your house while they're growing up, that they're going to have responsibilities, things to take care of, age appropriate, of course, but
Sure.
then they can't fully grow. And you also need to make sure that when they make mistakes, you know, there's a saying, and it sounds a little harsh, but suffering the consequences. Sometimes we have to recognize that our actions have consequences. Or if we forget our lunch or we don't make our lunch, we may have to use our own money to buy our lunch.
Yeah.
Because, you know, someone's not always going to be there.
Yep.
And again, this is age appropriate. So you have to really know
Sure.
your child, pay attention, and see what they're capable of. But also make sure that you're not holding them back because, let's be honest, they're your baby.
Yeah.
You kind of like, they're getting older.
Yeah.
What happened?
No, that actually reminded me when you were speaking of a time where my son, he actually lost his retainer. So he lost his retainer. He lost it the first time, and so my wife and I, we replaced it and we bought it.
Right.
And then I think a few months later, he lost the other one, and we were like, we are not paying for this retainer, and so he had to pay for the retainer, which was $500, and he
Right.
had the money, and he was just like, after he paid for it, he was like, I understand now what $500 is. I didn't really understand what it meant until he used his own money.
And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the good things, too, about allowing your high school students to be able to have a job. Because they understand how much time goes into purchasing a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Especially if there are some awesome tennis shoes that you like. You know, let's be honest, my oldest, he loves tennis shoes.
Yeah.
And he got to the point where he was buying his own. And he really started to rethink some of his purchases because he started equating time with a dollar amount. And that really helped him manage, you know, his expectations of the cost of things and whether or not it was worth it. It
Yeah.
helped him prioritize. And that's a life skill we all need moving
sure.
forward. So.
For sure. How can parents help their children discover their strengths without projecting their own dreams onto them? So that's I think that can be a challenge. And even when my son was in middle school, high school, I kind of struggled with that as well.
I think it can be hard because we want the best for our children. So
Yeah.
normally when we start to think or dream for them, let's be honest, we all do it. I mean, it's just what we do. Ever since they're little, we think about, you know, them growing up and then they grow up too fast and we're like, what was I thinking?
Yep.
But we see as they're growing the things that they're good at. And to be honest, sometimes you're really good at something and it's going to become a hobby.
Yeah.
So I think we can help them learn the things they're good at, because no matter what, that's still going to build confidence in them.
Yeah.
But also pay attention to the things that they enjoy doing. And if they really enjoy doing something, then start to explore, allow them to explore and figure out if there are ways that there is a way they can make a living at this. Some things are just more high profile, or the odds of succeeding in certain areas. Let's be honest, if someone wants to be an actor, it's a very difficult field to get into.
Yep.
So it may be, maybe that's not your career, but that doesn't mean you can't be involved in a local theater group or something. You can still get that joy of entertaining and things without it being a career. But then you could still find a career that you enjoy. Nobody wants to be in a job, 9 to 5 or more, and it's in a career they hate.
Yep.
But I think one expectation we have to recognize is the flexibility of the moment. Kids change their minds. Sometimes you don't know what you want until you experience it. One thing I wish we had more in society was the opportunity for kids to check out their ideas and career ideas before they actually have to commit to a major or something in college.
Yeah.
My husband and I knew some people in some different types of industries. And my younger son, he had thought about maybe being an engineer. I know nothing about engineering. And when I did look it up, there are so many different areas of engineering that trying to figure out what's what was so confusing. But we ended up meeting somebody that was very gracious. He worked at Disney. He was an engineer. Wow. So he allowed my son to shadow him for the day.
Yeah.
And my son ended up not going into engineering, but the experience itself allowed him to get a view of something that I personally, or my husband personally, was not able to give him.
Yep.
And so sometimes it has to be that we reach out and they have an interest and we look into, okay, maybe there's somebody that I know or I can meet that would be willing to give my child the opportunity to explore this. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, people want to help young people. I would. If somebody came to me and said, I used to do real estate. If somebody came to me and said, hey, can my kid shadow you for a day? They're really interested in the possibility of going into real estate. I would have no problem. And so I think that is, if you have a dream, let them experience what your dream is too. It may be that they discover more about it that they never knew about before, but it may be it's just not for them. So we kind of have to pull back a little bit. And even if something seems a little off the wall to us, okay, you have to support yourself somehow. How can we turn what you like, what you're dreaming of, into something that can support you? Or do we need to recognize maybe this is a hobby and we need to move in another direction?
Yeah. That made me think that mentors can be very important. We don't have all the ideas, we don't have all the knowledge and at different aspects, whether it's career, activities, whatever. But just, mentors can really help our kids be in places that we're not able to get them into.
100%. And school administrators, school advisors, counselors, they do the best they can, but they have a huge responsibility for a lot of students. Yep. And they would love to spend one-on-one time with your child as often as they can. But really the responsibility falls on us as parents to give our children those opportunities. Or if we're not able to, discover ways. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it doesn't happen right away, but I truly believe a majority of people are wanting to work with young people as much as possible and give them those opportunities. At least that's been my experience. So. Yeah,
I would definitely agree with that. And, along those lines, career and, what you're going to do in the future is very important. But I think more importantly is helping our kids to make good decisions. How would you say parents can actually teach good decision making?
Well, I think one of the ways is you lead by example. And that doesn't mean, oh, okay, we always make good decisions, so follow us.
Right.
No, part of it is there are some things that we can draw our children into for family decisions. Because finances are a big thing. You want your child to be able to budget their money. You can make money like millions of dollars, but if you don't know how to manage it, It's going to flow through your fingers like water. And so you can teach your children about money by having them maybe go to the grocery store with you, seeing how much things cost, how much you can budget. First of all, to make decisions with you under your guidance. Then you allow them to make their own decisions. We encourage them, to put 10% into savings, 10% to the church or to, charitable. And then the rest of it, they had to figure out, did they want to save more? What do they want to spend it on? Do they want to buy something extra at lunch? Do they want those fancy sneakers? Which, that's my older one. He wanted those fancy sneakers. So you got to figure out how to pay for it. And the thing is, too, one day they're going to go into college. They're going to go into an area where you're not going to be there in their day-to-day. So if they can make decisions now, and if they make a mistake, you're here to help them and guide them and help them either overcome that mistake or learn from that mistake. So obviously they're age-appropriate, again, decisions that you're going to allow them to make. But there are all sorts of ways in, just day-to-day life.
And if there was a teenager who had no idea what they wanted to do, what would be the advice you'd give to their parents?
Again, I would say exploration. Because my husband and I, we were talking about this the other day. Our kids have been raised so differently from the way we were raised. Part of it is being in a different part of the country. And part of it is just technology and just the way the world works right now. So they've been exposed to so many things that my husband and I were never exposed at their same ages. And so I know a lot of people, they'll push STEM and things like that. And they do it out of the goodness of their heart. They want their children to do well. And so do educators. They push that also because they want their kids to do well. But not every kid is going to be good at STEM. And so you have to recognize where are your children's gifts. Some people, they're so awesome at math and science, but that doesn't mean they want to work it either. But sometimes you don't know until you experience it. And that could be also where you are involved in volunteer work, maybe in different areas. I knew somebody one time, they had a major as a teacher. They went into student teaching, hated it. And they were already juniors in college. And they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't like this. And that is one of the falsehoods or one of the mistakes that we make as a society, is not giving our children the opportunity to experience these things before they dedicate the time and the money and the hard work into a certain industry. And I can't think of the percentage right now, but the percentage of people that go into college for their major and then they do something outside of that major is actually pretty high. And so I think experience, finding out, ask them, what is your favorite subject in school? It may be they're really into history, or they're really into writing or English. Maybe they really enjoy math and the sciences or robotics. Right. Where are your main interests? Next then, what type of jobs are even available that you would use these skills in? And let's explore those jobs and what you do on a day-to-day basis in those jobs. And I think the big thing comes back to exploration and experience. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so we have the responsibility as parents to help guide our children and in a lot of ways still follow their lead so that we are sending them in the proper direction. And then you cannot discount just praying about it, asking for God's wisdom, asking for God's guidance, and encourage your children to do the same. Because God will speak to them and give them guidance also. And that's another important part. Their faith needs to become their faith, not just a mimicry of your faith. And so this teaches them to rely on God, not just to rely on you to pray for them. They need to learn to go to God and pray for themselves.
Yeah, no, that was really good advice and guidance, practical advice and guidance. Thank you. And even along those lines, we're speaking about faith. How can parents encourage their children's faith without trying to control it?
I think one thing that sometimes they take this the wrong way when our children have questions. And I have always been a firm believer in asking questions. I have asked questions myself since I was a young child, and I was always encouraged to do so. To me, it's natural to encourage my children to ask questions. So in our house, it's always been, you have a question, you ask me. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes it's not your business. You know, there are some things that are for adults to make decisions on. And maybe when you're older, this is something we can discuss. But for now, you just need to trust that your parents are going to take care of it. Some of it, I don't know. But you know what? We can discover together. We can figure it out together. Or we can find someone who can explain it to us. And there are some truths in this world that are never truly discoverable, and we have to take on faith. As for our belief in God, I really truly believe that you need to be attending church as a family. If you want your children to have a strong faith in God, they need to see you exhibiting that faith.
Yeah.
You going as a family itself shows your child that this is important to you, and they see that importance. It's kind of like, you need to walk the walk yourself. That doesn't mean you're perfect. No one is. And your children understand that, especially if you make a mistake or you do something. You explain to them, you know what? I made a mistake. I messed up.
Yep.
But I trust that God's going to forgive me and that we're going to work to make this better.
Yeah,
I think, too, getting them in a youth group, a Sunday school, starting young, reading the Bible together, encouraging them to do it on their own. I think fellowship with other Christians is very important, other kids their age, because let's be honest, you are who you hang out with.
Sure.
And not that everybody you meet in church, unfortunately, is there for the right reasons or living the way they should, but the percentage is higher. So that's a lot of it right there. And just encourage them to study, ask questions. Don't be scared of questions. Questions show they're thinking about it, that they're maturing, that they're not just accepting, that they are starting to develop their own faith.
And what's something that you would say you believed as a parent kind of early on that you've changed your mind about?
Okay, I'm going to have to look at my notes on this one because I know I really try to pay attention to this one. Here it was. Okay, and it kind of went along with something I'd said before. My husband and I have volunteered. We volunteered together, but I wish, looking back, I had encouraged our kids to volunteer with us more as a family.
Okay.
Starting younger. In the area that we live in, they're required to have a certain amount of volunteer hours when they graduate from high school. So it was pushed to volunteer in the high school years, and I think they did a little bit with the church from middle school. But I regret that we did not, as a family, volunteer more and lead more in that direction. We discussed things. We talked about stuff. They knew that we volunteered.
Right.
And they knew that we did things with the church or with different organizations. But we talked about doing it. But it was something that just never happened. And so looking back, that was kind of a regret of mine. I think it would have been, one, made wonderful memories for us as a family, being able to do something for others as a family unit. But also we would have had the opportunity to see our children grow in that area, grow in compassion, and grow in being able to see others through God's eyes. And not that it didn't happen, but I would have liked to have been there more. And then we would have been able to, they would not just hear about us volunteering and what we did, but they would be able to see it, see that example up close. So that's something I wish we had kind of done a little bit differently.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a great example. Yeah. Different than I normally do. And that is, I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions. So kind of go through them and get your responses to them, and I will start.
Okay.
All right. First question, one parenting book every parent should read.
Okay, so I would say probably my number one, and this is more geared toward teenagers, would be The 5 Love Languages of Teens. It's based off the regular 5 love languages, but it's really from a teen perspective. And I think as an adult, you forget a lot from your teen years. Let's be honest. And it really changes your thinking about how your children are perceiving things around them. So I like that book.
Second question, one life skill every teenager should master.
100% being able to communicate effectively with strangers. Our kids are shy. They're in tech way too much. And they may communicate well with family members or people that they really know well. But when you put them in a situation of talking to strangers and they are so uncomfortable, which, let's be honest, we all are to a point, but sometimes they start to avoid those opportunities that might come their way because they have to talk to somebody. So I really think that it opens doors if they can communicate effectively with strangers.
And how about my next question? One conversation every parent should have
this month. I would say part of it is in the Christian community, we rely a lot on meeting other Christians, encouraging our children to meet other Christians and make friends. And obviously, we're going to church and things. But I think our children need to learn that we need to be wise as a serpent, but as gentle as doves. Not everyone, it's kind of like trust your instincts, trust your guts, and pray for guidance. Because you have to look under the surface sometimes. And you want to believe people, but you need to be able to check that in areas that you are in. Say if you're going to a Christian school, sometimes not everybody is there living their life the way that they should. And you need to recognize that and be able to not just look at what somebody might be labeled and trust that they're that way. You need to see that, okay, I'm going to use my brain, I'm going to use my eyes, and I'm going to use the wisdom that God has given me to make decisions about being intentional about who I'm hanging out with, who I'm going to have as a friend, and who I'm going to surround myself. Because like I said before, the people that you hang out with, that's who you become. And those are the people that have the influence on you. And as your child gets older, they're around their peer group a lot more than they're around you. So you need to make sure that they're choosing their peer group and not allowing them to just be drawn in by accident sometimes just because of circumstance. So just being intentional about friends and really looking under the surface.
Next, one thing parents should stop worrying about.
I think if on the day-to-day that there comes a point we have to trust that the things that we have taught our children are going to come to fruition. As our children get older, we have to allow them to make more decisions. And by doing that also means that we are trusting that we have done the best we can to teach them, to guide them, to point them toward God and allow them to make the decisions they need. And sometimes they're going to make mistakes, but we're going to be there to help them learn through those mistakes and hopefully do better the next time.
Gotcha. Last question. One thing parents should start doing immediately.
I would say immediately. Well, if we're looking at teens, I think our teens, children of all ages, they need to be given more responsibility. Okay. I know someone who, unfortunately, they're divorced. And sometimes because of that divorce, she gets this mom guilt. And part of her mom guilt is she goes out of her way, bends over backwards to do everything for her children. She does it out of love. Gotcha. But unfortunately, sometimes they're not learning the life skills and the things they need to grow into as adults. And there are a lot of things you don't want them to learn on their first job or learn in college. So you want to make sure that you're giving them responsibilities and letting them move forward with them. Whether it's sending them to the grocery store with X number of dollars and telling them, okay, I need you to get the food together for the meal today, and they have to comparison shop. Our boys helped with yard work. They hated it, but they did it. I'm like, okay, one day you make enough money, you can have somebody do your yard work. But for now, you're my lawn boy. But learning how to do it. But you know what? They know how to mow the lawn. They know how to edge. They know where to get the proper gas to put in the lawnmower. And they know these things to where they can do it themselves. And that's what we want to do. We want to equip our children, though it hurts a little, to not need us, because we've equipped them so well that they can take care of themselves.
Gotcha. Excellent. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation that we had together. I'm greatly appreciative of it.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. This has been a great opportunity for me, and I always love talking and discussing our boys and how
Yeah.
we can best serve them and help them grow with other like-minded people. So,
Excellent. So, as we always say, when we end, parenting is a journey. Explore your growth.
100%.
Thank you.